The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised. Assalamu alaikum and peace be unto you. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Welcome to Liberated Sisters, streaming live from Morris Media Studios in the fabulous Leimert Park. Today's show is, oh my God, it's so fantastic. We were in Mississippi. The Holly Springs and South Haven study groups hosted the Project Separation Town Hall. Student Minister Dr. Ava Muhammad is on a national tour raising the question, should blacks consider separation? And so the tour stopped at Holly Springs. And so a great shout out to all the believers there who had a hand in making that a huge success. We were going to have excerpts from Dr. Ava's message there. However, in light of what's happening with the U.S. political climate, war on the horizon, the destruction of our coastlines in terms of the fires and the weather here in Southern California, snow in other places. Blankets of snow most recently in Texas. I decided to reissue the warning from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the message and the guidance that he gave to us in the world, but the warning to President Donald Trump in his November 16th, 2017 press conference from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. So today's show is I had announced that Minister Ava would be on via an excerpt, as well as our great student minister down in Holly Springs, Student Minister Andre Muhammad. However, Brother Andre will return with us in the very near future because I want a really in-depth recap of not just the town hall, but Brother Andre gave a lot of information. He has a lot of information, and he is Student Minister James of South Haven, did a lot of work, many others, but I'm saying that to say that these brothers, inshallah, will be coming back, as well as, God willing, our Student Minister Emeritus down there, Sister Patricia Muhammad. So what we have in the show today is the Farrakhan factor. And after the Farrakhan factor, we're going to hear from a brother that's doing great work in Mississippi. And we actually hosted the town hall. He allowed us into the center there. His name is Patrick Alexander. I just learned about him. He is a soldier that you need to know. You want to know this brother and Sister Crystal and all of those with the Black Liberation Movement down in Mississippi that's doing great work. So right now, I won't belabor the point. All of that's coming up. But first, the Justice Report. In today's Justice Report, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. It's coming out of this issue of the Final Call newspaper. There it is, the final call, downfall of a president, the fall of a nation. Our editor-in-chief, Brother Richard Muhammad, and I, we interviewed many people, and we want to let you know that we raised the question, are we witnessing the downfall of a president, or the implosion of a nation when we see the impeachment inquiry by Congress and public opinion that's turning against President Donald J. Trump. And so in light of that, we're going to segue in a minute into the Farrakhan factor. But this final call cover story features none other than the great research minister, student minister Demetric Muhammad, who talked about the issue of the scriptures, not the issue, but the scriptures. He tied in the scripture to what we're seeing here with Nebuchadnezzar, who was a servant of God, right? And he went into a lot of what's happening in the political landscape. We talked to the great Dr. Ron Daniels of Institute of the Black World 21st Century, who said that in this story, he told us that the hypocrisy that's taking place is unfathomable, that there are 15 to 20 things that President Trump is doing and has been doing that Brother Barack Obama, former president when he was in office, would dare to have been able to do. There would be an uproar. And we also talked to the great Dr. Sekou Franklin, who said that he doesn't believe that the impeachment will go over in the Senate, but that it would happen in the House. And so we're going to see how that plays out. But thank you, Brother Richard Muhammad, editor of The Final Call, and everyone at The Final Call for making this publication happen. First and foremost, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the publisher who held it down, really held it up, built it up with his family so that we can have this great final call. So that's the Justice Report. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, and now the Farrakhan Factor.
I was told to deliver this message. You think you're invincible because you got money, bombs, guns, and planes, killing babies, innocent people. I think you're insane. Chaos and destruction is the name of your game. Somebody's got to stop you before the whole world goes up in flames. So he told me to tell you, I'll fight for my brothers.
That's exactly what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did and has been doing. November 16th, 2017, from the National Press Club, his press conference, a warning to President Donald Trump. He delivered a major message, to President Trump and the government on what to do, what not to do, cease and desist, or press the gas. That's my take on it. But here's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan very seriously from the press club.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. Thank you all for accepting our invitation. Brothers and sisters, members of the press.
Everyone, I have to correct an error in the public. I made it several times in the public. This is from the Watergate Hotel. Very important, very specific. So I apologize. We'll continue with the clip. Thank you so much, Sister Felicia. This is from the Watergate Hotel, not the National Press Club. Here's Minister Farrakhan.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his prophets and his messengers and the scriptures which they brought. We thank him for Moses and the Israelite prophets who gave us the Torah, or the Old Testament. We thank him for Jesus, who gave us the Injil, and the apostles who gave us the Gospels. We thank him for Muhammad ibn Abdullah, through whom the final revelation to the human family before the judgment of this world
came, the Holy Quran. I am a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I could never thank Allah enough for His merciful intervention in the affairs of the black man and woman of America by His coming in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, the great Mahdi. And we thank Him for raising up in our midst as His messenger, Messiah, to us, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet all of you, members of the press, members of Congress, members of the activist community. I greet you all with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. I want to first thank the members of the press for honoring us with your presence, and all of you who have come to hear what we have to say. For 40 years I have labored in this vineyard in the absence of my teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His work among us for 40 years is unparalleled in the work of reform of the black man and woman, bringing us from the savage state of existence that we were placed in by our former slave masters and their children. He was greatly opposed, but he was successful in making a new people out of us. He proved the efficacy of his wisdom. He proved that the wisdom that he was taught by his teacher is sufficient to make of the black man and woman, not only here, but in the Caribbean, in Africa, and the isles of the Pacific, a brand new, restored people after 6,000 years of living under the tyranny of white supremacy. This is not a hate-filled message from some radical madman. This is a message of divine love. But in that divine love of the divine creator, there's warning and there's guidance. God never sends prophets except that there's something awry, something wrong. And the prophet doesn't come out of hatred from God for the wrong of the people. He comes out of the mercy of God to call an errant people back to a path that would grant them divine favor and escape the chastisement of God. America is a great nation, but America needs to reflect on her sins. Who is bold enough, who is strong enough to say to America, you have been wrong for a long, long time. And it is time now for you to actually see yourself as God sees you, not like the silly woman that looked in the mirror and said, mirror, mirror on the wall, am I not the fairest of them all? No, you are not. So I am here from my teacher, not out of hate, but out of hope that maybe what I say to this 45th president of the United States of America might have an effect to get him off of the course that he is on.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Yes, sir.
40 years ago, I was awakened from a deep sleep after the so-called death of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His work destroyed.
Yes, sir.
His name buried. His people back to the old habits
Yes, sir.
that we had once forsaken. And after about 30 months, I decided I must make an effort to rebuild his work.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So in September of 1977, I decided to rebuild the work of Elijah Muhammad and reprove
Yes, sir.
to you who had rejected him and to a government that persecuted him that he had the best solution for the ever growing toxic relationship between black and white. So this message is not from Louis Farrakhan.
That's right. That's right.
This message is from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through Louis Farrakhan. And it is a final warning to the government and people of the United States of America. It is a final call to black people that you must change the way you think and the way you act, because the time has arrived for you to do better and be better, or suffer the chastisement of God until you submit your will. It's written in the Bible, and I say this to our president. It is written that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus the Christ is Lord. I represent that Jesus, that Christ that you have been longing for and looking for. To my Christian family, you got the right name. You got the right man in Jesus, but you don't have the right identification. We have to escape the tyranny of white supremacy that is embodied in an image of Jesus that is not Jesus. If Jesus were in fact a white man, we would have no problem bowing to his greatness and majesty, righteousness, because that's the way he's styled in the Bible as well as in the Quran. But the travesty is he was not a white man. You say, what difference does it make? It must have made a difference to you to take him out of his color. So that we would be worshiping your flesh as a Caucasian. Never summoning the courage to check you in your wrong. Stand up against you in your evil. And force you to do better as a people toward us. So today, God has come. And he has raised up a Jesus. The Jesus that Jesus the prophet was a sign of. Jesus the prophet who lived 2,000 years ago was a righteous servant of God. He is dead like all the prophets that lived before him. But Jesus prefigured one that would come in the last days of this world, who would be Jesus, the Messiah, Son of Mary. I know that you have these images, and you believe you're truly following Jesus. Jesus was not an unrighteous man. How could you be a follower of his, doing the evil that you do to people that you made Christians? We didn't come here as Christians. We became Christians under your tutelage. You were careful not to let us read the full book, the full gospel. You wanted religion to make us a better tool of service. Jesus never knew anything about a cross. The symbol of the early Christians was a fish. So when Jesus met Peter, Peter was fishing. And Jesus said unto him, come and follow me, and I will make you a fisher of men. taking people out of a murky sea of filth and evil and indecency and transforming their lives in their discipleship of him. To the members of the Jewish community, Louis Farrakhan is not your enemy. You act as though it is sin to critique you. How can you be better than what you are to escape the judgment of God if someone does not stand up with strength and criticize your misbehavior in the name of God? That's a great act of love. Every Jewish mother is honored and loved because a Jewish mother chastens her children with love and guides them to the greatness that they have manifested on this earth. So when you sing the song, My Yiddish Mama, you know how to honor your mother, fulfilling the command of God. Honor your mother and father that your days may be long. Well, as a member of the press, you may say, hey, I didn't come here to hear no preaching, Farrakhan. Well, this is just what I would call the prologue. Mr. Trump is an anomaly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's someone that doesn't fit the norm. You expected a man to be like the other presidents. You wanted him to be more presidential. He's so transparent. You wanted him to put on a suit and act dignified, like the thieves and robbers that dress in suits and tell lies. You wanted him to be like that. He's telling lies, all right. And you're angry because he's your reflection. He's an anomaly. You can't make him what you desire him to be so that you can say, oh, that's my president. He wasn't made that way. God has him here. What did you say, Farrakhan? Do you think that God is not interested in who is president of the United States of America? Especially when it's out of the time of evil? It's in our time now. You Muslims who are present, in the Quran, God and Satan are having a talk, and God is saying to Satan, I've judged you to be erring. Satan knows he's wrong. Any devil knows they're wrong. So God said, to Satan as Satan asked him, respite me, delay my doom. Because Satan was doomed from the day he was made. And God said to him, surely you are of the respited ones. And Satan responded to God by saying, I'm going to come after them in your straight path. I'm going to come to them from their right, from their left, from before them and behind them. I'm going to make them all to deviate. Did you notice that President Trump got in an argument with the Pope?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What kind of man is he? That he would argue with a man that every president of the United States would go to Rome and kiss the ring. But not Donald Trump. Have you considered these things? The Pope said, well, he's wrong because he's building walls instead of bridges. That's a nice thing for you to say, Pope Francis, because there's a wall that you all have built that walls you off from the poor and the destitute. How could you say he's wrong for building a wall when Nicholas V, a predecessor, signed a papal bull giving the kings of Portugal and Spain the right to come into the Western Hemisphere and take the resources of the indigenous people, and if they would not convert, kill them.
Wow. You know, I really want to keep that going. It is no good time ever to break into the minister when he's giving such guidance and direction. However, we do have, as I promised, a warrior coming up to talk about activity that is taking place on behalf of and at the instruction of the minister. You know, a tour to find out and to educate and inform about a referendum that's coming up on should blacks and the indigenous consider separation. But I just have to say that I think we're going to need to ask student minister Abel Muhammad, who represents the minister in the indigenous community in the land, Latino representative, to come on and let's pick up the conversation where the minister just mentioned the papal bulls and the slaughter and devastation of our indigenous brothers and sisters. For those of us who don't think that we're so very kin, it's unmistakable that we're of each other and have been divided. So you can purchase this full lecture by Minister Farrakhan. I said lecture, but actually warning to President Donald Trump. That message at store.finalcall.com. You can view it at NOI.org and also at Nation of Islam on YouTube. Thank you. And so I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. This is Liberated Sisters. And I also think that we're going to come back and just play that at another time. But go and view that message because the minister stayed on the warning the entire way through. And now we want to bring to you, again, I just learned about this brother when I went down to Mississippi, graciously at the invite of the believers there, Sister Donna Muhammad, her husband, Asika, and others. But Brother Patrick Alexander is doing very great work there. And it's good to get into the land to see because we might not know. But let's bring him on right now. Brother Patrick, thank you and welcome to Liberated Sisters for your first, hopefully not your last time. Hi, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Charlene. And I thank you all for having me on
Yes, sir.
today. I'm elated.
Praise be to Allah, brother. Thank you for your patience and a couple of things. One,
Hmm
okay, this is my mic, not yours. It's a fly here. Aggressive for answering the call, when you
Yes.
did, because as I told you, I told Student Minister Andre, sometimes I really forget that I have this duty right here, right? And I'm
Yeah.
traveling and I'm saying, the show. So number one, you said, yes, thank you. And they did too. Number
hmm
two, for being patient, because you just have to make sure the context for the minister is there, or else it's an error. You leave the people in error, right? So thank you for being patient as I got to a point where I felt secure enough to end the minister's address for now. Okay.
No problem.
So
Okay.
yeah, so Black Liberation Movement, born from the fight, right,
That's right.
of our ancestors, the one that they waged against our historic oppressor.
That's
Tell us
right.
about yourself, and we have a good, strong 20 minutes. I want to start about how you got into the movement, the struggle for freedom, justice, equality, and then we'll talk about Holly Springs, Coldwater, and the Project
Okay.
Separation Town Hall. And you shared a very great message, brother. I can't wait. You all stand by. The Project Separation team is going to be releasing that in a few short days on the
Right.
website. But go ahead, brother brother Patrick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you asked how did I get the idea of Black liberation and the movement and all that? How was that conceived? Well, early in my life, Sister Charlene, I began to understand social dynamics. And I began to understand very early, due to the circumstance of my own personal life, how diametrically opposed our people were in this society. Trouble befell me. I landed in a place where most of us find light, that we call prison. I landed in a place that we call prison.
Yes, sir.
And in that experience, the first light that came to me was a Final Call newspaper. That's what make this phone call and this Skype so real and relevant to me, and to the people that listening. It should set off some type of beacon of light. It was a Final Call newspaper that was laid on my bunk by a brother that I haven't seen since. And I asked that brother to remove that from my bunk, because the way that I grew up and the way that I was trained and indoctrinated, that was something that I should not be partaking of or reading and digesting into my psyche. But that brother was very persistent. He told me that I seemed to be a very intelligent brother, and it seemed like I shouldn't even be here. And at the time, I seen that brother as somebody who was opposing me and what it was that I believed. But when I look back on it, I see that brother as an angel and a beacon of light. So my resurrection began when I opened that newspaper up. And I began to discern some of the things that was in that newspaper, and it began to show and make me have a better understanding of what had happened to me and the course that I need to be taking. So from that point in 1993, my life began one of a liberated struggle.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Praise be. Sister Elaine Muhammad, Student Minister Andre's wife and owner of Urban Indulgence there
Right.
in Holly Springs. Great product. I will be bringing her
That's
on.
right.
She shared with me yesterday when we actually went to the Ida B. Wells Barnett Museum. I won't even get into that. That needs its
Right.
whole show. But very spiritual experience. But she shared with me one of your presentations at one of the recent summits you all had, and the way you talked about, come and get this off my bunk, and just the whole narrative was really intriguing. And I saw some great warriors, some seniors, some elders, our pioneers, like Dr. Donald Evans there in the
That's right.
audience, and many others. And I said, oh my God, he's surrounded by great, great people. So thanks for sharing how you started. Now, you shared some things during the town hall that were very pointed, and they've stuck with me because they're right on point. And one of the things you talked about was people dying, not letting the land die or go in the ground with our elders. I want you to talk
Right.
about what you're doing there in terms of the land, and also brother has water, okay? And you remind me of some of our brothers in the nation that started a water company, Everlasting. And when I saw
No doubt.
that, I was very excited, because you're not talking the talk, you're walking the talk. So
That's right.
yeah, talk about the
Yes.
land. I'm gonna get this fly out of
hmm Well, Sister Charlene, I think members of the nation would understand because it's a foundative teaching of the nation, and I'm very understanding of the teachings of the Nation of Islam. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the basis of wealth is land and labor. And when you begin to navigate the South, and a lot of our people, they exit the South, for better life or whatever they may call it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to look at the value of land and what it produced in conjunction with our labor for white people. So, my thing was in establishing the Black Liberation Movement was to go back to some of those fundamental things. If we really talking about liberation, we have to go back to the land. And when I began to look just right around me here in Mississippi, which I feel is a mecca. I feel that Mississippi is a mecca for Black people. You know what I'm saying? We have to start to control in resources. And what the Black Liberation Movement has done is actively, practically got involved in controlling two resources that we got to have, which is food and water. So we cannot produce the food without the land. And I had, just begin to realize how much land we actually retain as Black people. But we retain a lot of land. To my estimation, I know we have a lot of land had been stolen from us. A lot of land had been taken from us, but we actually retain a lot of land. I talk with older Black gentlemen all the time that have 99 acres of land, 100 acres of land right now, but their children are not interested in the land. So we have to figure out how to go back and begin to value that land and retain that land and control it, because we have old black people that's dying with land that I don't know what happens with it. Once they're gone and their children are gone to upstate New York and all up and down the eastern seaboard, and they have other careers, and they not coming back to the land.
Wow. Thank you, brother. You bring to mind Dr. Donald Evans. I remember when
That's
he
right.
told us he was moving, we really were crying. My husband and I could not believe it, but we knew we had to what we're going to do, keep him here, but it's out of a selfish kind of love, because he did and still has such a hand here in the LA community and the great groundwork, with the George Jackson University. He and our brother ancestor now, Nathaniel Ali, working with books and educating the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated, and just pipelining them out so that they don't have to, go back in, get caught at the hands of the enemy. But that was one of the things that he talked about, and his plan to build a fishery and other things on his land. So
that's right.
They're like walking examples of what you're saying. How did you get to produce your own water?
Right.
Was it hard?
Okay.
We need to do some water here.
It was second nature, Sister Charlene.
Wow.
It was second nature.
Water,
you begin, knowledge don't do nothing but feed on itself. You know what I'm saying? Once you start doing stuff right, it only precipitates you to continue to do other things right. So once we begin to understand that we need to control food from what I call conception to consumption, we need to be able to grow the food. I have a thing that I say everywhere I go. I say watermelon don't come from Walmart, Kroger. It don't come there. Watermelon comes from a seed.
Right.
And we have to learn how to go back and control the seed. You know what I'm saying? And once we begin to do that, we will begin to understand and feel our own power. We got to control that seed from the time it yields us a product to the time we create markets for that product, to the time we create distribution for that product, to the time that product hit a black plate in a black kitchen. getting prepared by a black mother and feeding a black stomach.
Hey, now.
And let me say this before I go on.
Sure.
You do understand that Dr. Evans calling me right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We
Dr.
need to
Evans
take his
is
call
one.
and patch me.
Hey, it's okay. He gonna whoop both of us. But
Oh yeah, I'm scared already.
yeah, he gonna whoop both of us. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talked to him in 2-3 days, and I met Dr. Evans.
You better than me.
Given
You
what
better
now?
off than me. I owe him a call from about a month.
Oh yeah, he gonna get you. Ain't no
Yeah.
doubt about that. He
Yeah.
getting you. But I met Dr. Evans because of a presentation I made down in Drew, Mississippi. That's kind of in the closer proximity than we are to Mount Bayou. And I made a presentation on the Black Liberation Movement at a Juneteenth festival in Drew, Mississippi. And I was talking about black people controlling resources. And it was two ladies there that was a part of another movement that's spawned in the Delta, prosperity over poverty. And they very affiliated with Dr. Evans. And they went back and said, it's some young man that's talking about, he talking just like you, Dr. Evans. You gonna have to get in contact with this man. That lady got my number, and lo and behold, Monday morning, I got a call from a raspy voice. I tell people it sounds like the voice of God.
That's right. And you take charge. You listen.
That's right. So once he contacted me, the next thing I know, this 91-year-old man was driving miles just to meet me, and I met him. And I said, okay, where your driver is? Let's go back to my place of business. We can sit down and talk. He said, son, you see that machine right there? I said, yeah, I see that machine, Dr. Evans. He said, well, I own it. And as long as I own it, I'll be driving. I said, wow. So, yeah, me and Dr. Evans attached it to him.
Yes, sir. That is a beautiful being right there. And everything you're saying, I can see his face right now. And right. He talks, we listen, and we move.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, just to know, age hasn't caught him. He will say differently, but it was just really good to see him. And I really thank you for the work that you're doing down there. I was able to do that, so I got to come back. But it's Black Liberation Water. How can people get it? It's watership.
We still developing the process, Sister Charlene, and that's something there. You know what I'm saying? In building system, you go through growing pains. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So things break down. We so used to watching the white man model and doing stuff. And we are so determined as the Black Liberation Movement to control every facet of what it is we do.
Right.
You're not gonna look around and find Black Liberation Movement water in Walmart. It's not a black product then to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not looking for, some type of lucrative payoff. We trying to control resources. Yeah. So that's the thing, we naturally evolved toward water. You know what I'm saying? I was already actually working with water through some people out of Memphis, which is very close in proximity to where we are. Yeah. And, once we was developing the food, it became natural. I said, okay, well, we have to invest in being able to process and filtrate healthy water for our people as well. That's only natural that we, that'd be the next thing we do. Right. So that just became the endeavor, Sister Charlene. And now you asking how people get it. Well, they contact me as of right now. Okay. That's the process. We developing a web page. The organization is still building the component, putting people together to help us organize what it is that we're doing and how we're going to be able to get this water out. Yes. And you mentioned Brother Tadar Muhammad. That's who you mentioned. That's right. Who you're talking about.
Everlasting.
Okay. No. All right. Brother Tadar Muhammad was there Saturday, and he was there. At my request, I said, Brother Tadar, you need to be there. And you do understand, Brother Tadar has been paralyzed, and that was a recent occurrence. 2 years ago, Brother Tadar was sitting talking to me, and we was actually invested in a car wash together in Horn Lake. And Brother Tadar went into the hospital, and he ain't walked since. You know what I'm saying? So, I seek a lot of counsel and advice from Brother Tadar on the water. Yeah. So he been helping me along, and then he also been connecting me with some things, that I need to be connected with to learn the process.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Brother Tadar. I mean, man, we have some Jews. I mean, priceless.
No doubt. No doubt.
And I did see Brother Tadero. We were moving a lot and doing a lot. And I don't know if he came in when the speakers were already going, but I did see Brother Tadero there. Thank you. Now,
No problem.
Oh, how can people reach you?
Okay, well, people can reach me via Facebook. That's the most effective way of doing it. And that's my Facebook page, Patrick Alexander. But we also have a Black Liberation Movement Facebook page that they can connect with, and they can also just call me. Okay. You know, I'm just a phone call away. You know what I'm saying? And we trying to. I'm sorry, sister.
I said I'm a witness. No, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, you know, we trying to expand our parameters. You know, the farthest delivery that we have made had been like, we actually made a delivery to St. Francisville, Louisiana. And that was the farthest I've been.
Okay.
But I commend the nation because the nation has been the strongest organizational support and buyers of the water. The Greenville Mosque, the Holly Spring Mosque, Jackson, Mississippi is on the line, and you know, the brothers down in Columbus. We got we expanding our demographics, and I'm proud to say that the nation is helping us expand those parameters. So we getting water distribution out, you know what I'm saying? But it's a hard thing because we need that financial that financial boost that we don't have, but we getting it out there. We're gonna get it done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when we won't be able to get it from other places, you know.
That's right.
Don't worry, you just keep getting your infrastructure ready because you will be depleting, you know. And also, you were talking, brother. You made me think of some things I think you need to know if you don't already. You're already locked into the brothers and sisters there, so they may have patched you into Able. I don't think we have Able Water yet. Number two, that's our food distribution network. One of. Number two, tag team marketing. I'm gonna talk to you offline about Brother Delzino, Wilson Debriano and his wife Debbie, and tag team marketing. You know, when you said that, they came straight to mind. They buy back black. The developers are black. The suppliers are black. The supporters who purchase the products are black, and it's all about black, not in other stores. I mean, the exact same thing that you just said. So that's something to consider as well. But tell me, thank you for all of that. Tell me, give me your recap of the town hall meeting. What did you think about it in and of itself, as well as student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad's remarks, but the entire Saturday evening there? And I enjoyed myself.
Oh, man. Look, let me tell you something. You know, that was the culmination, Sister Charlene, of something that happened back in 2000, in the year 2000. Minister Farrakhan came to Chula, Mississippi for one of his lifelong friends, Brother Eddie Carlton, in the dedication of a church down there. And I traveled to Chula, Mississippi that day with the sole purpose of meeting Minister Louis Farrakhan to his face. And I hope people are hearing this because this is divine synchronicity. Okay? This was the year 2000, which would be 19 years ago. I traveled down there with that sole purpose. And Minister Farrakhan, for some reason, decided to come out of the pulpit and walk down through the crowd. And I kind of explained it like the parable in the Bible of the woman with the issue of blood, and Jesus was coming through, and she just wanted to touch the hem of his garment.
That's right.
Okay? And everything would be made whole. I kind of likened that unto this. And I was crawling over people as Minister Farrakhan was coming down the aisle. I was crawling over people, being very disrespectful. But I was trying to get to Jesus. So I made it to him, and his big hand hit me in my chest and stopped me right there in my track. And that was the hand of Mustafa. And
I know it was.
And that was the hand of Mustafa. And he was like, ho. And there was another hand that reached across Mustafa's shoulder. I'll never forget it. And it was the hand of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he moved his hand. He said, let him come through.
Wow.
And I was looking at Minister Farrakhan right in his face. And I stuck my hand out, and I shook his hand, and I could feel myself hyperventilating as I said. I said, Mr. Farrakhan, I said, it's an honor to meet you. He said, no, my brother. He said, it's an honor to meet you. Now, I know, and I tell people, I know that he didn't know exactly who I was, but he knew what I was. He knew in my eyes, and he knew in my spirit, he had my hand, that I was serious about whatever it was I was doing, and I was determined. So he went on into that lecture, and he gave a very profound lecture, and he said something that never left my mind. He said that out of oppression, change comes. He said out of the most oppression comes the most change. He said that black people in Mississippi have suffered more than any black people in this country. He said, out of Mississippi, I expect the greatest leadership. Okay? And that's something that never left my mind. And the Black Liberation Movement hit me like a spirit that hit the back of my brain. And ever since that day, I have been pushing the agenda of the Black Liberation Movement. What happened Saturday was their connection. I've been growing up reading Ava Muhammad in the Final Call newspaper for years.
Yeah.
Now, when she walked into that room and sat beside me and Sister Crystal, that was a divine order. You know, nothing more, nothing more, nothing less than a divine order. And she sat beside me. I leaned over to her and I said, it's an honor and a pleasure. And she was magnificent. She was more than expected. She was well versed and she was determined. And I tell these young ladies, you know, I'm very understanding of the organization of the AKAs, and I'm understanding that Sister Ava is the AKA, and she's also an attorney, and she's also very grounded in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, and she's able to disseminate that from her platform, so she can be an AKA and an attorney and still be grounded in what it is to be black and to be liberated and to project with pride that particular stance. So that program was a culmination to me. It crescendoed up to that event in my life, and I'm very proud at the turnout. I was very proud to see everybody that came. The topic that we discussed was very relevant, and it was very on time. And so, you know, like I wanted to point out, and I wish the conversation could have been a little bit longer, so that we can point out that we already have townships that separate. We have to begin to determine and to show that we can work small working models of what separation really look like. When I'm in that town of Coldwater, I feel a lot safer than what I'm at right now, which is a town south of Coldwater, 5 miles south, Senatobia, which is a predominantly white town that I grew up in. Okay, when we control the governmental policies of a town like Coldwater, when we control who the police are in a town like Coldwater, when we control any type of business commerce that's going on in these proximity, we got to understand this is all over Mississippi. This is all over the South. We have to become very aware of those demographic advantages that we already have. And we can beckon for our brothers and sisters to come out of those cities where we getting killed at and come home. And let's begin to build, start engineering here. Start your electric work here. And we can begin to build our own townships and structures, and we can secure ourselves, you know, because we are already separated in a lot of aspects. So it was great, Sister Charlene.
Wow.
It was great.
It indeed was great. First of all, being down from just a state or two away in Louisiana, just going to Mississippi, you know, the last time I had gone, I was in grade school, and I was talking about being going on field trips. I was telling the delegation I was with, and going to plantations and not really having the knowledge of self or anything. And we have these other teachers, and we're going through these plantations and viewing this. The modern day might have snapped, but I'm just sitting there and I'm confused, right? So all of that was drumming up, all of the beautiful land, seeing the muddy water, just everything. And then coming up on all of you, Sister Crystal, you and the body there. I mean, a beautiful heart and spirit in the South. You know, we are that way wherever we are, but it's just something about that Southern black, you know. I won't even get into. I started thinking about Katrina and just hearing and seeing, you know, like the heart of the people. But I'm gonna pull it back, really back, and say that, you know, we do have to go. But brother, make Liberated Sisters your and Sister Crystal's and your whole organization's home. We're here with you, whatever you're doing. We want to help you get the word out about that. And I put the information up on the page. I know there's a lot more that we could talk about, but again, I had to give that warning from the minister, because I don't want people to fall asleep and forget, because I
Right.
hear conversations taking place and epiphanies going on, and I'm like, okay, I got it. It's an epiphany for you. But let me let you know where you might have heard this and might have forgotten, right? So,
Right.
so anyway, brother, I do want to say thank you for being with Liberated Sisters, and please give Sister Crystal, beautiful Sister Crystal, the greetings. And I intend to have her on should she accept the invitation as well.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt she will.
Praise
And
you.
I will let her know.
Yes, sir. May Allah continue to bless you all with success.
Thank you for having me on, Sister Charlene.
Praise
Thank
you.
you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
That's our show for today. I'm just going to say NOI.org, finalcall.com, morrismedialive.com, lasentinel.net, liberatedsisters.com. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Thank you, Mississippi, Memphis. Thank you, especially again, Sister Donna, Brother Asika, and the babies. And thank you to Felicia, the Poetess Morris, and Morris Media Studios. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying, if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Peace.